The lights at Lumen Field in Seattle were still humming, a low electric drone that filled the silence of the mix zone. Mehdi Taremi stood there, sweat still cooling on his brow, his eyes fixed on a lens that represented a world that wasn't listening. He had just missed a penalty. His team, Iran, had just drawn 1-1 with Egypt. Their World Cup survival was now a matter of mathematics and prayer, dependent on the failures of others in the best third-placed lottery. But Taremi wasn't there to talk about the missed spot kick or the narrow VAR offside that robbed them of a win. He was there to pull back the curtain on a logistical nightmare that FIFA hoped the world would ignore. It was a moment of raw, unscripted revolt. The captain of a national team was accusing the most powerful sporting body on earth of a fundamental betrayal. Why has Iran's captain reached a boiling point that transcends the pitch? The answer lies in the widening gap between FIFA's glossy promises and the brutal reality of a tournament that feels rigged against them. The 2026 World Cup was marketed as a festival of unity, a 48-team expansion designed to bring the world together across 3 nations. Yet, for Team Melli, the experience has been one of systematic isolation. The context of Taremi's outburst is essential to understanding its weight. Iran needed a win to secure their path. Instead, they got a draw and a lesson in bureaucratic warfare. While Egypt celebrated a historic knockout stage berth, a genuine achievement for African football, the Iranian squad was already looking at their watches. They weren't looking at the time until their next flight. They were looking at the time until their next border crossing. This wasn't just a bad result on the grass. It was the final straw in a campaign defined by exhaustion, missing personnel, and broken promises made in the sanctity of the dressing room. To understand the fury, we have to look at the data. In a tournament of this scale, the numbers usually tell a story of revenue and attendance. For Iran, the numbers tell a story of a handicap. Let's look at the Tijuana commute. Because of the ongoing military and political friction between Iran, the United States, and Israel, the Iranian Federation was forced to move its entire base of operations. They didn't move to a neighboring U.S. state. They were pushed out of Tucson, Arizona, and forced to settle in Tijuana, Mexico. This single decision transformed every home game in the U.S. into an international logistics operation. While their opponents slept in 5-star hotels 10 minutes from the stadium, Iran was boarding buses for the border. Consider the recovery window. In elite football, the first 6 hours after a match are the most critical for physiological repair. This is when inflammation is managed, glycogen is replenished, and the central nervous system begins to reset. For Iran, those 6 hours were spent in a bus queue at the San Ysidro port of entry. Every match played on American soil required an international border crossing both before and immediately after the final whistle. No other nation in the 48-team field had to navigate this. It is a statistical anomaly that creates a compounding physical deficit. If you play 3 games in 10 days and lose 4 hours of recovery to customs and border protection every time, you aren't playing the same sport as your opponent. You are playing a game of survival. Then there is the missing 11. A modern World Cup squad is an ecosystem. It requires more than just 26 players. It requires a small army of specialists. Video analysts who break down opposition patterns in real time. Recovery doctors who monitor blood oxygen levels. Kit managers who ensure the tools of the trade are ready. According to Taremi, 11 senior officials from the Iranian delegation were denied visas. They simply weren't there. Imagine a Fortune 500 company trying to launch its biggest product while 30% of its executive staff is barred from the building. That is what Iran was asked to do on the world's biggest stage. Taremi was blunt. Our logistics don't work here. Where is our media? No media, no kitmen, no one. This brings us to the most damning piece of evidence: the broken promise of Gianni Infantino. Taremi revealed that the FIFA president himself entered the Iranian dressing room after their opening match against New Zealand. In the high-pressure environment of a World Cup, a visit from the president isn't just a photo op, it's a diplomatic signal. According to the captain, Infantino looked the players in the eye and assured them that the logistical hurdles, specifically the visa issues for their support staff, would be resolved. It was a verbal contract delivered by the most powerful man in football. But as the group stage drew to a close at Lumen Field, those 11 chairs remained empty. The visas never arrived. The logistics never improved. The promise was, in Taremi's words, a disaster. The weight of this failure cannot be overstated. When a player like Taremi, who carries the hopes of 88 million people, stands in a mix zone and asks, "Who wants to help us? If they want us to be out, okay, let's go out." He isn't just venting. He is identifying a tier system in global football. There are the A-tier nations for whom the red carpet is rolled out, and then there are the inconvenient nations. Iran, caught in the crossfire of global geopolitics, has been treated as an administrative burden rather than a competing finalist. This wasn't a series of isolated mistakes. It was exactly how the system was designed to work. The mid-script pivot is unavoidable. The system prioritizes the spectacle over the participants. FIFA's expansion to 48 teams was a financial masterstroke, projected to generate billions in additional revenue. But that expansion requires a level of logistical perfection that the current geopolitical climate simply cannot support. When you spread a tournament across 3 massive nations, Canada, Mexico, and the USA, you create a web of visa requirements and security protocols that footballing neutrality cannot pierce. Iran's experience is the canary in the coal mine. It proves that FIFA's "Football Unites the World" slogan stops at the border of political expediency. Let's dive deeper into the financial and historical expansion of this crisis. Historically, FIFA has hidden behind the shield of being an apolitical organization. They claim that football and politics don't mix. But the 2026 World Cup is the most political sporting event in history. The selection of the United States, Mexico, and Canada was a geopolitical statement of North American unity. However, that unity does not extend to nations on the U.S. State Department's complex list. By awarding the tournament to a host with such rigid entry requirements, and then failing to secure sporting visas for all participants, FIFA effectively sanctioned the Iranian team before a ball was even kicked. The cost of this inequality is measurable. Let's look at the performance tax. In professional sports, the difference between a win and a draw is often less than 1%. That 1% is found in the video analysis provided by the staff who weren't there. It's found in the extra hour of sleep the players didn't get because they were at a border checkpoint. It's found in the peace of mind a captain has when he knows his federation's president is in the stands, rather than being turned away at a Canadian airport. When Taremi missed that penalty against Egypt, he was a man playing with a mental and physical load that his Egyptian counterparts, who had a seamless experience, simply did not carry. Iran's head coach, Amir Galanoy, tried to play the diplomat, but his words only highlighted the fracture. He pointed the finger at the host nation, saying, "It was the host that wasn't very good to us." This creates a dangerous precedent. If the host nation can dictate the quality of a team's preparation through visa denials and travel restrictions, then the integrity of the competition is dead. The World Cup becomes a home court advantage not just for the hosts, but for anyone the host deems a friend. It turns the tournament into a gated community. The financial disparity is equally galling. FIFA provides solidarity payments and preparation grants to every team. But how far does that money go when you have to relocate an entire training base to a different country at the 11th hour? Who pays for the private security and the additional transport required for the Tijuana, USA shuttle? The Iranian Federation, already hamstrung by international sanctions that make moving currency a Herculean task, was forced to absorb these costs. They were paying a premium for a second-class experience. This isn't just about Iran, it's about the future of the sport. If the 2026 model of multi-host mega expansion is the blueprint, then we are entering an era where the logistics of a team are as important as their tactics. We are moving toward a world where a team's ease of entry score matters as much as their FIFA ranking. Imagine a future World Cup hosted across Eastern Europe or the Middle East, where certain nations are given secondary status, forced to stay in neighboring countries, and denied their full coaching staff. We would call it a scandal. Why, then, is the silence from the Western media so deafening when it happens in Seattle and Tijuana? The human element of this story is what makes it truly devastating. Behind the talk of visas and logistics are men who have dedicated their lives to this moment. Mehdi Taremi is 31 years old. This is likely his final peak performance World Cup. He didn't want to be a diplomat. He wanted to be a striker. He wanted to bring the joy to the people of Iran, a population that has endured immense hardship. His quote in the mix zone was a plea for basic humanity. We want to send them a message of peace, but there is no peace about the others to us. When he took responsibility for the missed penalty, he was shielding his teammates from the narrative of failure. But the failure wasn't his. The failure belongs to a governing body that collects billions in broadcast rights while failing to ensure a kitman can get a visa. It belongs to a system that invites the world to a party, but makes some guests use the service entrance. The numbers don't lie architecture of this tournament reveals a grim reality. The 48-team expansion wasn't about including more of the world. It was about extracting more from it, regardless of the cost to the players' well-being. As the group stage concludes, Iran's fate hangs in the balance. They are waiting for the results of other groups to see if their 4 points and neutral goal difference will be enough to see them through. But in many ways, the damage is already done. Even if they advance, they do so as a depleted force. They will face a round of 32 opponent that has had full access to their medical staff, their analysts, and their recovery facilities. Iran will arrive at that match as the team that lived on a bus. FIFA has yet to issue a formal response to Taremi's specific allegations. They haven't explained why the president's promise went unfulfilled. They haven't explained why 11 officials were deemed a security risk to a football tournament. They will likely wait for the news cycle to churn, hoping that a dramatic knockout goal or a viral fan moment will bury the testimony of the Iranian captain. They are banking on the world's short memory. But the image of Taremi in that mix zone is hard to erase. It was the image of a man who had realized that the game he loves is being managed by people who view him as a logistical complication. It was the realization that the world in World Cup is conditional. The 2026 tournament was supposed to be a celebration of the sport's growth. Instead, for those who look closely at the numbers and the logistics, it has become a case study in institutional neglect. The wider implication is clear. The 2026 World Cup has broken the illusion of a level playing field. It has shown that FIFA is willing to sacrifice the sporting integrity of the competition on the altar of expansion and political convenience. If a captain of Taremi's stature can be ignored after a direct promise from the president, then no player is safe from the whims of the machine. The gap between the haves and the have-nots in international football is no longer just about talent or funding. It is about the right to exist within the tournament's infrastructure. As we look toward the knockout rounds, the shadow of the Tijuana border looms large. It is a physical manifestation of the barriers that still exist in a sport that claims to have none. Iran may go home, or they may stay to fight another day, but they have already provided the most important piece of investigative evidence of the tournament. They have shown us the cracks in the 48-team dream. They have shown us that when the numbers don't add up, it's the players who pay the price. The final image of this saga isn't a goal or a save. It is the sight of the Iranian team bus idling at the border in the middle of the night, the players' faces pressed against the glass as they wait for a guard to check their papers. It is the silence of the 11 missing officials, watching from a television screen in a different country because their presence was deemed too difficult to manage. It is the look on Taremi's face as he walked away from the microphone, knowing he had spoken the truth to a power that wasn't listening. The 2026 World Cup will continue. The stadiums will stay full, and the sponsors will stay happy. But the ghost of the Iranian revolt will linger in every stadium from Seattle to Mexico City. It serves as a reminder that football, for all its beauty, is currently governed by an architecture of inequality. We are left with one haunting question that FIFA cannot answer with a press release. If the world's biggest tournament can't provide a fair stage for all its participants, what exactly are we celebrating? The bus moves. The border opens. The game remains broken.